Here we go. So we are now up to this exercise where we're going to be looking at sketching, but not using the skills that you learnt in 9B. So let's recap what you did in 9B. Okay, this is what you did in 9B. Exercise 9B, when I first introduced this topic to you, you were given a rule, okay, and then what did you have to do in order to sketch this? What was the first thing you had to do? What do? So you're given the rule, y equals 2x minus 4. What's the first thing that you had to do to complete exercise 9B? What do? What do we do? Cooper, what do we do? Exercise 9B. You've got a table. What's the table for? What do you have to do in the table? Michael?
You have to, so like, I don't know how to explain it. The linear thing, so it would be -2 over y, and you need to figure out the y coordinate.
Very good. So we need to find out the y coordinates. What you did in the exercise 9B is you had to then figure out these y coordinate values. How do you figure out these y values? To fill out this space here, what did you have to do in 9B? How do you find out the y values for each one? What did you have to do?
Use the formula like -2 by -2 minus 4. Now
Very good. Logan's onto it. So remember in exercise 9B, you had a rule. The rule tells you how to find y. For every one of these y coordinates, it uses the x coordinate. If the x coordinate was -2, you use the rule, times it by 2, the -4, that's how you get the y value. So for example, if x was 1, then according to the rule, y will equal to 2 times 1 minus 4. See what I'm doing? I'm just following the rule. 2 times whatever x is, which is 1, minus 4. What's 2 times 1? 2 minus 4, which is -2. Very good. And then this is what you would have done, right? And you're right. Michael mentioned about finding the pattern. Now, if we subbed in 2, if x was 2,
0.
what's the y value? 0. Okay, so 2 times 2 minus 4 is 0. What's the pattern so far?
Going up by 2.
Going up by 2. So the one over here has to be negative?
4.
-4.
-6. -8.
Good. Then what you did afterwards is after you got your y values, listening, each and every one of these are coordinates. So you have -2, -8, -1, -6, 0, -4, 1, -2, and 2, 0. What you then did in the second part of the skill in 9B was that you plotted that onto a Cartesian plane. So you had to draw your axes, and this is what you would have done. You would have got out your ruler, sketched out the axes, then you would have wrote y-axis. Ooh, what happened there? Or was it off? Yeah. You would have wrote y-axis, x-axis, and then you had to use your ruler to label them correctly so that you can put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. True? When you put your 5 points, what you realized was it was a nice straight line. And I told you to use a ruler to sketch it. True? So what you were able to do in exercise 9B, it was a very tedious process. You get a rule, you use a table, and the table is to illustrate 5 different points, and then you have to rule out your axes, put in those 5 different points, and you get your straight line, and you sketched it. That process takes too long. By the time you get to year 11 and 12, we're not doing that anymore. It takes too long to do just one sketch. So I've been teaching you in our last lesson, I said, how many points did you need in order to sketch a straight line? What's the minimum number of points you need? 2. Very good. You only need 2. To draw a straight line, you can't do it with 1, but as soon as you have 2, connect the 2 dots and you get a straight line. So as long as you can get 2 points, you don't need 5, like you did in 9B. You only need 2. So today, in your worksheet, where's your worksheet? I'm going to teach you 2 points. So this is what I want you to copy. We're going to now do, this is technically exercise 9E, but you don't have to do 9E. You can do the questions here. If you want more practice, do the questions from 9E. Okay? Because this is what you're building on. This is using your algebra. Instead of doing the table, you're going to use algebra now, and you're going to find 2 points. Once you know there's 2 points, you can sketch. And I'm going to guide you how to do that. Okay? Now, These are the notes. So under your notes here, see how it says notes, x-intercept, y-intercept? This is what I want you to write for each one. So, as mathematicians, we are quite lazy, okay? We don't want to be doing 5 points. We don't want to rule out axes. It takes too long to do. But what we can do is we only need 2 carefully labeled points, and we should be able to sketch this graph. These 2 points rely on what we call x-intercept. So if I drew the axes, x-intercept, let's have a look. I'm going to have a y and an x here. I'm just going to label it 1, 2, 3. And I want you to tell me the pattern. When I draw a coordinate on the x-axis, so this is on the x-axis, so I got 3 points. This is on the x-axis, so we call it x-axis intercept. These points here, 1, what's the coordinates? If you had to write the coordinates, what's the coordinates here? 1, 0. What's the coordinates for this one? 2, 0. What's the coordinates for this one? What's the pattern? Or what do they all have in common?
The x, the y-axis is 0.
Very good. This is literally all they try to teach you from year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, and year 12. Every time you find an intercept, that is the x-intercept, we know one thing. The x we don't know, but the y value we do. It's always 0. Because it doesn't matter which point you choose on this x-axis, the y value is always 0. So because of that, this is one thing we know. And so they normally tell you, they say, let y equal to 0. That's what they normally teach you. So next year, I promise you, whoever your teacher is, they are going to say, x-intercept, let y equal to 0. And most students will know this. If you went up to any year 10, year 11 student, you said, how do you find x-intercept, y-intercept? They will tell you, let x equal to 0 or let y equal to 0. And that's what they're trying to say. Okay, and it's just really based on a pattern that we notice on the Cartesian plane. So similarly, let's look at the pattern for the y-intercept then. What if I picked a point on the y-intercept now? So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to label this as 1, 2, 3. What's the coordinates when I have a point on the y-axis? So this one, that one, that one.
0, 1, 2, 0, 2, 3, 0, 3.
Very good. So I'm going to do it again. 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. What's the pattern now? The x coordinate is always 0. So notice, when you have the coordinates on the y-axis, interestingly enough, it's the other way around. We don't know what y is, but we do know that the x coordinate is always 0. So I'm going to write here, let x equal to 0. So please write this down as part of your notes. On your little space there, I want you to write to remind yourself, it is always, you don't know what x is when you're trying to find the x-intercept, but you do know that the y is going to equal to 0. When you're looking for the y-intercept, you don't know what the y value is, but you do know x is always going to be 0. Okay, and we're going to use just these 2 key factors to solve. You're going to use algebra to solve, and I'm telling you, out of these 2, the hardest one is x. That's where you've been training chapter 7. Y-intercept, all of you are going to be able to do it. Every one of you is going to be able to get the first mark, which is how to get a y-intercept. It's the second mark that makes the difference. So in year 9, when I find students struggle, it's not knowing this difference. It's the fact that they can't do the algebra. So that's why I've been spending chapter 5, chapter 7. Every one of you, I've been pushing you to do chapter 7 correctly, because I know this is where it will differ between all of you. So some of you will be really good at algebra. Some of you will struggle with fractions. Some of you will struggle with negative numbers. But the theory is not. The theory is straightforward. It's your algebra that you need to work on. Okay? So please copy those 2 notes, and I'm going to show you how to do the first question below. We're going to do this one together. We're going to do the first question together so you can see, how do I sketch without doing the table, without getting 5 coordinates, without ruling your axes 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes too long. I want to show you how we normally do it at the year 11 and 12 level, because that's the skill that you should be at by the time you get there. You only need 2 points, and you don't need to rule it that accurately. You just need to label it as accurately as you can. That's it. Okay, and there's only 2 points you need. So, here we go. Let's do an example. I'm just going to skip this question over here, and we're just going to come right to, you should be on, all right. That's weird. Why isn't it there? That's weird. Yeah. That's okay. Maybe I will just find that question and then we'll do it together. So lesson, unit 3, linear equations, and find the rule. Here we go. So question 2, we're going to do question 2 together. Here we go. So we're going to do question 2. So, same thing. We are now going to try to figure out how to sketch y equals 2x minus 4. So remember the rule before you had, oh hey, it's actually the same one. 2x minus 4 here too. So we should be able to sketch it without doing this table in exercise 9b. Okay? We're going to do it using only 2 points, but you have to use algebra. Now the easiest one to do first, y-intercept. Okay, question 1 is just identifying. We'll come back to that. But right now I'm just going to teach you the algebra to it. So you only need 2 points. So the first one we're going to find is called the y-intercept. Now looking at your notes, how do you find the y-intercept again? What did I tell you that we know? What do we know? X equals 0. So I'm going to write down the notes again. Y-intercept, we know that x is going to be 0. We just don't know what y is. So we're going to use those coordinates. We know that x is 0, y we have no idea. So in our equation, y we have no idea, so we leave it as y. X, on the other hand, we know 0, so it's 2 times 0 minus 4. See what I'm doing? I'm just using the equation that they've given us, and I'm using the fact that we know about a y-intercept. We don't know what y is, but we do know x is going to be 0. So that's what I'm doing here. 2 times, that's a times, not an x there. 2 times 0, so I'm going to write it again, so it's clear. 2 times the 0, because x is now 0. Now let's work it out. Y is equal to, very good, y is equal to 2 times 0, which is 0, minus 4, and that gives me y equals to negative 4. You found your first point. What's your first point? We literally just figured out this y value here has to be negative 4. So what's your first point? This is my first point. I've got now 0, negative 4. See, I don't need 5 points. I've just got my first point by simply using one fact that we know about a Cartesian plane. This straight line, no matter how you draw a straight line, it's always going to cross that y-axis. And when it does, x is 0. So I said, all right, well, if x was 0, tell me what y is. And according to the rule, we figured out it's negative 4. So I got my first point. So that was easy, right? Let's try another one. Let's do the y-intercept for this one too then. Let's do the same thing. Let's find the y-intercept. So here we go. Find y-intercept again. I don't know what x is. Oh, sorry, I don't know what y is, but I know that x has to be 0. Correct. Very good. So here we go. We do it again. Y is equal to 3 times x. Now, since x is 0, that's what we know at the y-intercept. Not anywhere else, just at the y-intercept. X is going to be 0. So 3 times 0, and then minus the 9. We know 3 times 0 is 0, minus 9, and like Logan said, it is negative 9. And that gives us the coordinate is 0. When x is 0, the y value is negative 9. See that? I've got 1 point. For both equations, I've got 1 point. I only need one more for each and one of them, and I can sketch both of them. I can sketch the equation if I know another point for this one. I can sketch this equation if I have another point. That's how easy it is. You don't need to do the table, and you don't need a rule. That's why this is special. Okay, now the first one, y-intercept. Have you guys noticed something? Look at the equation, and look at our y-intercept. Look at the equation, look at our y-intercept. What's the pattern? Have you seen something there?
It's always just what the end, it's like the plus, it's whatever the plus is, unless it's got a negative.
You guys are amazing. Literally, what Chris just said, this will disappear because every time you sub a 0 in, the x's are going to disappear, and it's exactly like what Michael said. Whatever you're adding or subtracting is your y-intercept. That there is going to be your y-intercept. See, that's negative 4, that's negative 4. This is negative 9, that's negative 9. So over here, what's your y-intercept going to be?
10. It's actually going to be negative 10.
It will be positive 10. Because
That's
negative
a
5 times 0 will be 0, and 0 plus 5.
Zero.
Very good.
My bad.
So one of the patterns that we now know is you don't even have to calculate it. You can just look at an equation and you'd be able to look at this and say the y-intercept has to then be 0, 10. Look at that. That's one of the easiest things. Every student should be able to get 1 mark, but I promise you not all year 9s are going to get that first mark because they're not up to that level where they can understand what you're doing. And I just taught you what a y-axis intercept was. And then I just went through, I guided you through it. And we can see every time we times by 0, there was a pattern. And the pattern was the x's always disappear. And then y ends up being whatever the last number is. Yep.
You still get the mark if you don't write down the working out.
Correct. Normally they mark you on the graph. So on the graph you have to have 2 points.
As long as you have the y-intercept.
So as long as you got 0, 9 on negative 9, 0, 10, or 0, negative 4, you're good.
So you don't have to.
No.
Go like
Especially in year 11 and 12, you're not even touching it. You just write down what the point should be. Everyone should know. But at the junior levels, I'm teaching you why that becomes the case. So next year, you'll find that a lot of teachers will tell you this is C. C is the y-intercept. Most students will take it as a fact, but they don't understand why that's true. I've just shown you why that's true. Because every time you sub 0 in, that ends up being the y-intercept value. Now, so the only one thing we don't have right now is the x-intercept. If you can find the x-intercept, which all comes back to your chapter 7. Each and every one of you has shown me your skills in chapter 7. I've seen really good balancing equations, so you should be able to do this next step. And you'll be able to find your second point for all 3, and you can sketch all 3 without doing the table, without pulling out the table. Okay, so much easier. So here we go. Let's do x-intercept now. So looking at your notes, how do you find the x-intercept again? What was the note saying? Very good. So here we know that we don't know what x is, but we know that the y value is 0. So according to the rule, this is my rule over here. If y is equal to 0, then I would have 0 is equal to 2 times x minus 4. And this is what you've been doing. Does that look very similar to chapter 7? See, chapter 7, you were solving for x. You were practicing to balance the equation, do SAM-DOB to solve for x. That's where it comes in. That's why you spent year 7 and year 8 to practice your algebra, because we're going to get you to sketch and analyze functions. That's the purpose of getting to methods and specialists, is for you to be able to analyze functions. But you can't do that without your basic skills. So the first basic skill is you have to be able to solve that. So let's solve this. Logan.
Would it be 2?
The answer is 2. That is correct. But I want to see the method to get there. Okay, so here we go. What's the method again? Let's revise our chapter 7. SAM-DOB, we're trying to get addition and subtraction away, and you said plus 4. So this minus 4, remember, try to get rid of all the addition subtractions. That's a minus 4, so the opposite of minusing 4 is, and that's why Chris said add 4. So we're going to add 4 on both sides. I'm balancing the equation, add 4 on both sides, and here we go. We get 0 plus 4 is 0. Oh, sorry, not 0. 4. And then 2x. Now, negative 4 plus 4, what does that become? 0. So you don't have to write it. 0 has just disappeared. Okay? So, negative 4 plus 4 cancels out to be 0. I'm left with this. My goal is to find x, but I need to remove that times 2. Because 2 next to x means times 2. What's the opposite of timesing 2? Very good. Divide by 2. So here we go. I'm balancing the equation. Divide the right-hand side by 2. Divide the left-hand side by 2. And we know that 2 divided by 2 is?
0.
Not 0. 1. And then the common answer is 0, but it's not. They don't just disappear. It's 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then instead of writing 1x, we're a bit lazy, so we just write x. But I want you to remember, 2 divided by 2 is 1. I still taught my year 11 this too. Okay, so my year 11s are still making that same mistake because it's a common misconception. They just cancel things out. It's not. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 times the x gives you x. If it helps remind you, put the 1 in front of it so that you remember it actually is 1x. Okay? And then on the left-hand side, 4 divided by 2? 2. Very good. So this is what Logan was asking. Is x equal to 2? Yes. X does equal to 2. What does that mean? You've got your second point now. Your second point is when x is 2, y coordinate 0. You've got 2 points. You can sketch this graph now. You've got 2 points. You've got 2, 0, and you got 0, -4. Put them on a Cartesian plane and bam, connect the 2 dots and you have a straight line. Okay, and I'm going to show you in Desmos that this is true. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to give you a bit of time to copy that down. Copy that down. So I'm interested. This is the hardest part. That's chapter 7, and that's what I'm building up. I've been building up with you to make sure you can do this type of equation. And in year 9, what makes it hard? The type of equation you're going to get. You're going to get things from chapter 7, fractions. You're going to get things with negatives. And as long as you can solve the equation, you're okay. Okay, so most of you, everyone here should be able to get 1 mark for y-intercept. It's the x-intercept that relies on your algebra. So when you're practicing chapter 7, see, I'm always about you working on your basics. Work on the foundation, build your skills. Lay it out, question, method, answer, and you will be able to do year 9 mathematics, and you'll find it's quite easy to take. Otherwise, it becomes quite confusing. Okay? Here we go. Now, I do want you to practice using your Desmos as well. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to show you on your on Google. So here we go. I'm just going to move this to a side. Okay, cool. Here we go. I'm just going to move this to a side. You can still copy the notes. In your exercise, whoops. So not exercise, on your Google, you can go to google.com, and if you just type in Desmos, okay, so Desmos graphing calculator, the first link that says Desmos graphing calculator, you can actually just click on this and you can actually see if you've done it right. So if you're unsure if your answers are correct or your graph is correct, you can type in y equals, in our case was 2x minus 4. They've sketched it for you on this right-hand side here, so I'm just going to make it bigger so you can see. Can you see that the y and x intercept is exactly what you figured out with me? Y-intercept is when it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so this is your red line. Where does it cross the y-axis? This is the y-axis. It crosses exactly 0, -4, which is what you had. You solved that the x-intercept should be at 2, 0. It crosses at 2. Okay, so that's all you need. You only need those 2 points. Put on the axes, use a ruler, sketch that, and that's a perfect graph. Okay, that's what we expect at the year 11 and 12 level, 9 next year. You don't have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't need to. You just need to draw 2 points, connect them, and you've got your graph. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's do another one. I'm going to go to this one. So we now need to figure out 3x minus 9. We're going to try to work out for the x-intercept. Same thing. How do you find the x-intercept again? What do you have to do? Which one is 0? The y. See, we don't know what x is because we're trying to find the x-intercept, but we know the y coordinate should be 0. So, using the equation, we now know it's 0 is equal to 3 times x minus 9. So now let's balance the equation to solve for x. What's the first step you're going to do now? Plus 9. Very good, Rihanna. Plus 9, because that's a minus 9. So opposite of minus 9, add 9. Here we go. 0 plus 9 is 9. -9 plus 9 becomes 0. And you still have the 3x. What's the next step? I want to find x. What do you have to do now? Divided by?
3.
3. Very good. So I'm dividing by 3 because it's x times the 3. Opposite of times is divide. Divide both sides by 3. And you can see now 3 divided by 3 is? 1. Very good. I don't want to hear 0. So 1x is equal to 9 divided by 3, which is 3. So what's my second point now? What's my coordinate?
3, 0.
3, 0. Very good. I now know x is 3 when y is 0. So let's see if this is true. Apparently our 2 points should be y-intercept is 0, -9. X-intercept should be 3, 0. Let's see if it's true. I'm going to go to my Desmos. Here we go. I'm going to edit this equation. We've got 3x minus 9. Let's see if this is correct. Okay, so let's look at the graph. X-intercept crosses at 3. So on the x-axis, it crosses at 3. Let's see. Did we get that? We did. It's 3, 0. Then the y-intercept is a bit low there. I can't see it. So I'm going to just scroll up a bit. There we go. Y-intercept is at -9. And did we get -9? We did. So you can sketch all this and you can test it in Desmos to see if you understand it correctly. But each and every one of them is the same method. let's have a look at the next one. Your turn now. Okay, so I guided you for the first two. You already got 0, 10. I want you to figure out the x-intercept for the next one. See if you can do this one. So this one has a negative in it, but same idea. Balance the equation. See if you can find the x-intercept. And we're going to test on Desmos to see if you got it correct.
Positive 2. So you've got minus 10 quid, then you minus 10 quid, that's negative 10. Yeah, so right here. You've done everything correct, it's just the final answer. 10 divided by 5 is 2. You can double negatives. And double negatives become positive. Still like this too. When you don't have a ruler, use take that expression, you can fold it in half, and you just
Pretty good. Have a go. We got some correct answers already. Here we go. I'm going to write the solution. X we don't know. Y we know should be 0. Your equation should then be 0 equals negative 5x plus 10. That's a plus 10, so I'm going to minus 10 on both sides. Gives me negative 10 equals 2. Negative 5x. Divide both sides by negative 5. Don't add 5. A lot of students add 5. Don't add 5. It's a negative 5 times the x. That's why I'm dividing. And negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. So 1x is equal to 2. Double negatives is positive. Okay, for those who weren't sure, these two negatives become positive. So you should have 2, 0. Hands up if you got 2, 0. All right, let's see if this is true now. So I'm going to go to my Desmos graph. Negative 5x plus 10. Let's zoom out and let's see. So I should have 2, 0 on the x-axis. And I do. I've got 2, 0. Next one should be 0, 10. So if I scroll up, it touches exactly at 0, 10. Okay? So now I'm going to give you, it's currently 10:57. I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes to practice answering the questions on the next page. Now I only got about another, so it'll take you this page here. So I want you to practice. You don't have to do exercise 9E, but you have to do these worksheets. The back of the page, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 graphs to have a go. Okay, so 9 graphs. Question 4 over here is trickier because I added in a bit of negative and some fractions. See if you can solve. That's chapter 7 stuff. Okay, theory is the same. So you can have a go. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you the second part, and that's the last skill I needed to show you of chapter 9. Last skill of chapter 9. Okay? And then you should be all right for next year. But those are the 2 main skills I want you to learn. 2 main skills. Here we go. That's the page. Use your laptops if you like for Desmos to double check your answers. So as you're sketching it,